Hello, thanks for checking out my video. Welcome to my channel, Jersey Shore Pondscapes videos. My name is Chris and we talk all about koi ponds and waterfalls and water gardens and aquatic plants and koi and everything, pond filtration, you name it. I have a ton of videos here on the channel, so if you're new, please take some time and take a look at all the videos. I have a ton of stuff here. I've got about 75, 80 videos for you guys already, and we're going to keep on building on that. So, thanks again for checking it out. And today's topic, we are doing something a little bit different. I'm not specifically trying to teach you about a specific topic relating to, koi ponds or water gardens. Today we are taking a look at a project that I worked on several years ago, and I wanted to tell you all about it because I thought it was a pretty interesting project to take a look at. So I'll give you the whole history here. This was an old, very formal pond design that was on a large estate down by the ocean here, and I was called by the homeowner about 25 years ago. At that time, this pond was a real mess. It had some beautiful lilies in it. I will say that. It had some beautiful lilies in it. The problem was the pond had been neglected for years and years and years and years and years. Okay, basically nothing was ever done to this pond in probably at least 20 years. It had some beautiful lilies in it, and it had about a foot of water or so in it. And it was what it was. They just kept it as a lily pond, and everything was just fine with it. There's no pumps, there was no filtration. It was just a lily pond. From what we can guesstimate, the pond was probably built somewhere between 75 and 100 years ago. It had been on the property long before the owners purchased the property, and that was at least 50 years ago. And it was never set up to function in any way. I'm guessing that the technology in the pond department 100 years ago probably wasn't too great. So it was basically designed, dug out, and it was all built out of concrete. And as you can see, I'll show you some pictures when we tore it all apart. It had all like bricks and cement blocks and all kinds of crap in the walls of this thing. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. Basically, what happened was the homeowners had called me and said, listen, we have this pond. It's got some beautiful lilies in it, but it's a mess and I don't know what to do with it. I'd like to clean it up, maybe get some fish in it, So when I got over there, the plan was, well, let's start by draining it, cleaning it out. Unfortunately we had to remove all the lilies. It was basically one big bed of roots, and it was a mess cutting these lilies out. It took me a long time to clean this pond. I actually got into the pond, and like I said, the water was only about a foot deep or so. Turns out the pond was a good 2.5 feet deep. It was just a foot and a half of, muck and sludge and leaves and roots. And it was most of this pond, I actually, in order to remove the lilies and remove all the roots out of the pond, I actually had a handsaw that I was just trying to cut through sections of the roots and removing chunks of the roots of all this stuff out of the pond, a little bit at a time. It was a mess, all right? The lilies were beautiful, but the rest of the pond was a complete mess, okay? Turns out we got the whole pond drained out, cleaned the whole thing, I washed it all down, and in the bottom of the pond, we found a surprise. It was really cool. On each corner of the pond, like in the middle, but on each side, there were 4 concrete fish set into the floor of this pond. You can see the picture of it here. Complete surprise to myself and the homeowner, because it was buried under 1.5 feet of muck and sludge and roots and everything else. So when we discovered these things, it was really pretty cool. We're like, hey, look at this, there's these fish in here, right? So what we had done, once we got it all drained out and cleaned, and the walls were all concrete. There was a couple cracks here and there in the walls. I tried, I sealed up with a little concrete mix and stuff, mortar mix, to seal the cracks. And then we painted the entire pond on the inside with a black liquid neoprene rubber coating, just to seal it, make it look nice, but basically, to seal everything. So we did that. We filled it back up with water. The problem we have now is that there is no plumbing in this pond, okay? There's no plumbing leading outside to hook up any kind of pumps or filters. So everything kind of had to be done internally. So what I ended up doing, as you can see in the middle of the pond, there was a pedestal with a statue, there in the middle. And we wanted to bring some action to the pond, like a little fountain kind of effect into the pond. We can't put a waterfall on this. As you can see, the design is really formal, right? So we can't put a waterfall on it and make it look nice. So we wanted to do a water feature, like a fountain jet kind of thing spraying up in the middle. So basically what I had to do is we took a sump pump, a large submergible pump, and we put it down in one back corner of the pond, and I ran a pipe underwater and did PVC in, all connected like a big loop of PVC, which went down over the pedestal, over the statue. And I had 3 jet pipes coming out from it. So when we plugged in that pump, the water kind of jetted out of the middle. It was just a nice, subtle effect. It gave some sound. It gave a little action to the pond. It was nice. We did end up putting some fish in here. But we need to try to add a filtration system on the pond. And the only way to do that was to run pipes up, right from the bottom, up over the coping, down into the ground, and then we had to run it, in the back, in the bushes. Wasn't the prettiest thing, but it worked. We ended up planting a bunch of ivy and putting a big, large iris plant in the pond and stuff there to try to kind of hide those pipes and cover up those pipes in one corner of that pond. And that worked for years. It did. It was nice for several years. Everything was going well. I had I want to say probably a 1/4 horsepower pump on there with 5,000-6,000 gallons an hour. It was pumping, so it was circulating a nice volume of water. And I had on I want to say a 40-watt UV light we had on that pond at the time, and it was doing a job. It did a good job. The pond was nice for many years. I want to say about 10-12 years went by, and I had been there. I do regular maintenance on that pond for them, and so I'm always there at least once a month. They're doing some maintenance and stuff, keeping up with it. But we started having problems with the pond leaking. The integrity of the concrete walls was really starting to deteriorate. I had, painted the whole thing with that liquid neoprene rubber coating. We tried doing it once more, but there was just pieces and chunks of concrete that were just falling off the wall, and it was really deteriorating. So our option was, basically, we don't know what the structural integrity was of this thing, so we decided that we were going to rip it out. The homeowners loved the design, loved the shape, loved the size of it. I mean, it was perfect where it was. So what we needed to do was to basically rip it out and rebuild the pond almost exactly the way it was, which was quite a challenge. The design and the shape of this thing is, not your everyday, simple, routine kind of design here. So it really took a lot of planning and, measuring and figuring this all out. What we ended up doing, the main thing that we really wanted to keep was the coping around the top. The concrete coping, it was about 2 foot wide, and it had a taper. It had an edge, it had a taper up, it was flat on top, and then it had a taper back down on the other side. And that coping ran all around that entire pond. There was no way I was going to find a replacement for that anyplace. It had to be custom built. It had to be, remolded and done on the spot. Okay, there was just no way I don't know where, nobody would sell it, right? It would have to be made. So that was a big challenge. What we had decided to do is that once we ripped out the entire pond, now I am going to put plumbing into this thing. I put 2 4-inch bottom drains in the bottom of it. I ran 3 separate return pipes back for the fountain effect around the statue. And I had everything buried underground, underneath all the liner, underneath all the block, cement work, and it all ran back into the bushes in the back. I ended up putting in a big concrete tank, like a gravity-fed filter system back there, with 2 big True Union ball valves to shut the water flow off between the pond and the tanks, set in the ground back by the filter tanks. We used a 1/2 horsepower pump that's pumping over 6,000 gallons an hour, and we included another UV light on top of the 40-watt UV light that we had originally. We put in another 65-watt Pentair UV light. So we had plenty of filtration, and now the pond was actually designed to function and work. Okay, so as you can see some of these pictures here behind me, what we did is we built this foundation all out of block. Okay, we did all block and cement work. We filled all the blocks up with concrete and gravel, so it was nice and solid. On top of the block we did a stone wall, and we had the liner come up in between. If this is my block wall here, what we did is we brought the liner up in the middle, and we did a stone wall on this side of it and a stone wall on that side of it. Okay, so a stone wall inside the pond, a stone wall outside the pond with the liner in between. And basically, what that did is it gives us that effect of that stone rock work all around the pond. So if the water level fluctuated up and down a couple inches, we wouldn't see the black liner in the pond. It would always be, rock, the water would always be coming up out of the rock work. So it, would look much better. The coping we framed out of wood. We poured the concrete into sections of that framework, the mold, so to speak, and I actually colored the concrete so it wouldn't be that gray, white gray kind of color when it dried. This was actually like a tan. So we did put a color into the concrete mix. To make it, a tan color all around the top. And we actually kept that same shape. I brought the concrete up, leveled it out on top, angled it down on the other side. So it kept that same exact thing. And I gotta say, I think the coping came out incredibly well. It really looked awesome when it was all done. It was quite a project, and it was really heavy, you know, picking up the sections, removing all the woodwork from it, and then setting the section back down. But it worked. I pulled it off somehow. But anyway, so, you know, here's the pond. This is basically what it turned into. It is awesome. We do have a ton of koi in here now, all kinds of, mostly smaller ones, but they will grow. But we've got a whole bunch of fish in here now, and some goldfish as well that, you know, we actually had left over from the old pond and stuff when we remodeled this one. I took the fish he had out, kept them in a holding tank, and you know, put them in the new pond as well when we were done. And it's been simply a very formal koi pond now, you know, with that fountain kind of effect in the middle. When we rebuilt the pond, I was suggesting to the homeowners to replace the statue in the middle, only because that statue was really, really old and it was starting to deteriorate as well. But they really loved the statue, and it was the original statue that was there when they bought the property, you know, God knows when. And, you know, they wanted to keep that statue there. So it's a brand new pond, but it still had a piece of the old, you know, pond in the new one. Unfortunately, within a couple years, that concrete statue just started to fall apart. The back of the head fell off, parts of the arm fell off. Yeah, she was a headless statue there for a little while. And the problem was getting in there to replace it now and put something else in the pond, because that liner is like grease. The pond is almost 3 feet deep now. It's at least 2.5 feet deep and almost 3 feet down at the bottom drains. And to get in there on that greasy, slippery, slimy liner and pick up that statue and carry it out is impossible. Like, there was no way I was going to do that. I'd kill myself. And I'd end up dropping the statue and puncturing the liner or something too, I'm sure. So, yeah, so a couple years later we ended up removing the statue, but we haven't replaced it with anything new as of yet. But I think it looks fine. I mean, you know, it's still a great pond. It's been nice and clear. It's been working really well now. Now, those 4 original concrete fish that were in the floor of the old original pond, we saved them. And we actually set them into the corners, 4 corners of the coping outside the pond, which looked really cool. But you know, after we had done that, the homeowner, they had an idea that maybe we should paint them like a dark blue or something, just to kind of make them stick out a little bit. And I painted one, and they didn't like it so much, and they didn't want to paint the other ones. But they said, leave the one blue and whatever. So that's what we did. But you can see them, you know, out here on the corners. That's really pretty cool. All right, so I thought that would be an interesting project just to show you and you know, take a look at and kind of revisit. I still go to that pond at least once a month. It's beautiful. The people are great there. You know, they're very good clients of mine, and definitely it's been a great pond over there. So everybody really enjoys it. The grandkids come over, the family comes over to the house, and everybody's out there feeding the fish, and it's quite an attraction. All right, great. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. You know, hopefully we'll see you in another video, and take care. We'll see you again. Bye.